Welcome to Joydala Fashion Guide. Today's video I'm going to be making a long sleeve shirt pattern. So we're going to be drafting the pattern. And then I'm going to be using this fabric to make mine afterwards. So it is a long sleeve. So we'll be looking at working with the collar as well, drafting the collar, the long sleeve, the cuffs on the sleeve. So I'm going to be using this pattern paper. This will be my starting line. So this is the shoulder. So I've marked I've marked ½ inch out for the starting line. So from the shoulder to the bust line, the shoulder to the waistline, and shoulder to the hip line. So we are marking the vertical measurement first. So I'm going to use the marker to highlight again so that you can see it properly. So this is the shoulder line, the bust line, this is the bust line, the next one is the waistline. This is the waistline, and then the hip line. So that is the hip line. So the bust line for this customer is 11 inches, the waistline is 17 inches, and then the hip line is 25 inches. So before we start, we need a space for the button placket. So I've marked 2½ inch because we need ½ inch to fold it inside, and then the button placket is 1 inch wide, and of course we're going to fold it over each other. So we are using 2½ for that. So that is the line I'm ruling right now. It is for the button placket. So while I was writing on the cardboard, I actually wrote placard, but checking the meaning of placard, it is not correct. So the correct word is placket, button placket, not placard. So please ignore what I wrote, what I'm writing right now. I wrote placard, but it's actually placket, not placard. So this is the button placket, the space where we are going to put our buttons. So the shoulder measurement that I'm working with, so I'm going to be working with this measurement: shoulder to bust 11 inches, shoulder to waist 18 inches, sorry, not 17, and then shoulder to hip 26 inches. So all my measurement will start from this line towards the other side. We are not including the space for the button placards, okay, to have accurate measurement. So all our measurements start from there. So now right now I'm marking the shoulder divided by 2, half of the shoulder. The shoulder we are working with is 17 inches, and half of that is 8.5, and I've gone ahead to add 0.5. The neck width is 3 inches. A shirt does not have to have a very wide neck, so by using 3 inches, and we got that by dividing our bust circumference by 12. So after marking the neckline, I mark the shoulder slope of 1 inch. So the next thing, I'm going to be marking the neck depth. So for the front, I'm using a neck depth of 3.5 inches. So if you have a French curve, you just use it to connect the depth to the width. If not, just use your free hand. So the neck width is 3 inches and the neck depth is 3.5 inches. So the next thing now is to take the armhole depth. So the armhole depth is gotten by dividing the bust circumference by 6 and adding 1.5. And you can also use half of the shoulder measurement as well. So I'm just marking the armhole depth right now, and also remark it on the other side so that we can have a straight line. So this is now the chest line. So I'm just going to use my marker to highlight again. So let's go to draft with pencil. So if there's anything, you can easily erase it. So this is the chest line. So I'm just highlighting the shoulder slope again, and then the armhole depth. So I'm just marking the neck circumference again. So half of the shoulder measurement, we are going to take it on the chest line so that we can have a straight line to the shoulder. So this is the armhole depth line. So this is armhole depth. So the next thing now is we are going to be marking the armhole length. So to do that, we mark half of the armhole depth, and then this is a front pattern we are drafting, so we are going in by ½ inch. And then on this chest line, we'll take the bust circumference divided by 4. We mark bust circumference divided by 4. So this will help us to get our armhole length. So we'll connect from the shoulder to that midpoint and then to the other side so that I can get the armhole curve. So this is the armhole curve I am marking right now. So that is the armhole depth, and then this is the armhole curve. So on the bust line, we'll take the bust circumference divided by 4. So mark the bust circumference divided by 4. On the waistline, the waist circumference divided by 4. And also on the hip line, the hip circumference divided by 4. So just connect the lines together. From the hip to the waist, and then the waist to the chest line, or to the bust line, and then to the chest line. So we are going to be adding our allowances. We can add 2 inches seam allowance. So after marking that, just connect with a straight ruler. So this is our seam allowance space. So they are true with our front pattern. So at the shoulder line, we're going to put in, we are going to be coming down with 1 inch, because the back always initiates, the back always drop towards the front by 1 inch or 1.5. So we are going to be taking that off from the front pattern. So I'm going to be using 1 inch. For male shirts, we usually use 1.5, but for female shirt, 1 inch is okay. So I'm going to be taking 1 inch off, so that we'll be able to get the shoulder drop from the back. And after marking this 1 inch, also remember to add 1/2 inch seam allowance again. So this is the 1 inch we are going to take off from the front pattern. We are going to be adding it to the back pattern. So the back pattern will be longer. So we are going to cut this part off. So you can now go ahead and cut on your fabric. And then don't forget the 1/2 inch seam allowance, because we need seam allowance to join this shoulder, this new shoulder, to the back shoulder. So add the 1/2 inch seam allowance. So that is the seam allowance. So everything now is now 1.5. So when you are marking, you'll just take 1.5 off, and then 1/2 inch will now serve as the seam allowance. So we'll cut the neckline, the shoulder, the armhole, the side, and we are through with our front pattern. So we are going to cut now. So before you cut, just fold in the placket, the body placket, the way you would have done for if it were a zipper allowance for the back pattern, the way you would have done when drafting the easy body. So we'll cut out our pattern. So when you are cutting on paper, don't forget to use your paper scissors. So this is the front armhole. And then the shirt sleeve, the shirt is not just straight at the down part. So to get that curve, you can go up by 1.5 or 2 inches, depending on the curve you want to achieve there. So if you take a look at a shirt, the basic shirt, you see that the side has a curve from the side towards the center. So you can determine how curvy you want that to be, 1.5 or 2 inches. So I'm going to do mine 2 inches. And then we curve it towards the middle. So you can use your French curve for that. And then we cut it off. So just curve your hand as you are cutting. So this is the front pattern. When you are through, don't forget to label your pattern. So this is front pattern. So when you are cutting on fabric, you're going to fold the fabric into 2, and you're going to have 2 pieces. So we are going to be drafting the back pattern now. So from the shoulder line, I've left 2 inches away from the shoulder. You will see why we left that later on. Take a look at the shirt again. You see that the back slopes into the front. So that space is the allowance you are going to use for that. So I'm just highlighting now with a marker so that you can see the line. The line can be more visible. So this is the bust line I'm marking right now. And the waistline, the same thing that we marked for the front is what we are repeating for the back pattern. And then the hip line. So the waist, the shoulder to the bust is 11 inches, shoulder to waist is 18 inches, and then shoulder to hip is 26 inches. So this is now the shoulder line. This is the bust line, the waistline, and then the hip line. The hip line. So marking the neck width now, we are using the same neck width of 3 inches. So half of the shoulder is 8.5 plus half inch seam allowance. Now is marking 9 inches, and then 1 inch for shoulder slant. So slant it towards the neckline. So the neck depth for the back pattern is 1.5. It's 1 inch, sorry, we are using 1 inch. So after marking that, you use your curved ruler to mark it. So this is 1 inch. So I'm going to mark our armhole depth. So we can actually place our pattern, front pattern on this to mark that, but I just want to show you in case you want to mark directly. So the same armhole depth, measure it. So connect the line. This is now the chest line. So this is the chest line. So on the chest line, take half of the shoulder measurement so that we can get our armhole depth. So connect that to the shoulder. And And then on the chest line, you mark quarter of the bust circumference so that we can get our armhole curve. So when drafting a shirt pattern, you will not be using your exact bust circumference, you'll be adding ease allowance. So if the bust circumference is say 10, you can add 1 inch ease allowance or 2 inches depending on how free you want your shirt to be. But for a perfect shirt, 1 inch ease allowance is okay because your pattern is on fold. So 1 inch means that you have added 2 inches. So that is quarter of the bust circumference plus ease allowance, quarter of the waist circumference plus ease allowance, and then quarter of the hip circumference plus ease allowance of 1 inch. And then we connect the lines, the dots from the hip to the waist, and then the waist to the bust line up to the chest, up to the chest line. And then just like the front pattern, we added sewing allowance. Okay, that's part ease allowance and sewing allowance. So you also add your ease and sewing allowance if you've not added it already. So you add that to your main fabric when cutting. So on the pattern paper, you can just use the exact. So this is the center back, and it's going to be on fold. So we are going to have one piece for the center back. So this is center back and it's on fold. If you are cutting your pattern, you are going to cut it on fold. You are going to have one piece. But the front, you are going to have 2 pieces for the left and the right side of the shirt. So this is going to be 2. So remember this shoulder, the 1 inch we removed from the shoulder line. I'm going to extend the back shoulder upward to replace that. We will also add seam allowance to that, because we need 1/2 inch seam allowance to join to the front pattern. So just extend the line upward. So we are adding 1/2 inch seam allowance. So use your ruler to connect that after marking. So if you put both patterns together, you can see that the armhole curve, they are the same. They are ending at the same point, so our pattern is correct. So this is going to come over. So we're going to be cutting out our pattern. Go through the armhole, through the sides, the down part. We are also going to have the curve at the down part of the back pattern, just like we did for the front. Take 2 inches and then use the curve roller to curve it towards the midpoint, toward the middle. So you can use 2 inches or 1.5 according to your preference. So go ahead and cut it out. Sorry, my camera didn't show that part very well. I didn't realize I was out of the coverage. So this is the back pattern. Always label your pattern so that you don't get confused. And we're going to have just one piece because we are going to cut or fold. So I'm going to be working on the shoulder now. So you see that when you place both of them together, the armhole line is the same. So I'm just confirming my measurement again. Always confirm your measurement before cutting to avoid mistakes. So I'm just cutting the back neckline. And then the shoulder, the new shoulder for the back is now high. So I'm just trying to blend in my cutting. So you can see that we have a difference from the back pattern and the front pattern at the shoulder points. So this will fold to the front, you see. This is how it will fold to the front. So that is why we needed to add the seam allowance. So we are through with our basic bodice. So you can go ahead and cut that on your fabric. We are through with the main body. So we are now left with the sleeves, the curves, and then the collar. So we are going to be drafting the collar now, and the collar is in 2 parts. We have the main collar and then we have the collar stand. So after joining the front pattern and the back pattern together, you measure what you have on the neckline. Measure it, and that will help you to get the collar stand. Measure it over the bottom placket, sorry, not placard, over the bottom placket. So this is better done after joining the shoulders, the front and the back shoulders together. So I'm just going to use the pin to hold the paper together just to explain how it is done. So after joining both shoulders, you now mark the neck circumference. Moving in. So we are not adding the bottom placard because right now we want to assume that we have already sewed the placard. So it is now part of the placard you are going to have, like 1 inch. Not the full 2.5 that you marked before. So that is why we do it after joining the shoulders and sewing the bottom placket. Then you take the neck circumference, you measure the neck circumference. So assuming this pattern was completed, there would have been another piece for the back. The back would have been the full back, and then the front piece there would have been another piece for the front. And then you'd have gone ahead to measure the neck circumference, the complete neck circumference. But right now you can measure what we have and multiply by 2. So we're going to pick another pattern paper, and what you have, you must divide it by 2. Say for example you have 19 divided by 2, that will be 9.5, and then you fold your pattern paper into 2 like this, and measure half of the measurement that you took for the neck circumference. That is the neck circumference divided by 2, half of the neck circumference. So you mark half of the neck circumference. And then you mark the midpoint of that. So half of the neck circumference, and then another, that is quarter of it, you now mark it. At that point that you mark, you go up by 1 inch, and then at the end you go up by 2 inches. This is because our neck is not straight, so you are trying to achieve the neck curve. So from that 2 inches you connect to the 1 inch and then to the beginning line to have the perfect neck curve. So the collar stand is usually about 1 inch, 1 or 1.5 inches in height. So I'm marking 1.5. If you mark 1 inch, then remember to add seam allowance, because you need seam allowance to sew around it. So it can be 1 inch or 1.25. That is for the collar stand. And then I'm just using my free hand to blend that, because it's not really a straight line, it's a kind of a curved line. Now we are going to cut it out. Following the curve. So this is about 1 inch in height. So this is our collar stand. And then the end of the collar is curved, is curving. So to achieve that curve, you go in by 1/2 inch. So go in by 1/2 inch. because it's not sharp, so that place is curvy. And then just use your hand to, your pencil to blend it. So you're going to cut that part off in a curved manner. So this is our collar stand. So the next thing is to drag the make collar. So at the collar stand, I'm going to go in by 1 inch. The collar will not get to the end of the collar stand. So to stop like 1 inch before the collar, before the end. That is where the collar is going to stop. So you get another pattern paper. And then after marking the 1 inch away from both sides, you measure what you have. And then we're going to divide that by 2. So assuming the full neck circumference was 20 inches, and then after taking 1 inch from both sides, we now have 18 inches, and then half of that will now be 9 inches. So your paper will be on fold, and then you're going to mark the 9 inches. I'm just going to cut off this part so that we can have a straight base. So when you take a look at the collar, you will see that the end part is, the height of the end part is different from the middle. So this one now is about 3 inches, and then the middle is 2.5. So they are not all the same height. So at this end part, you can mark 3 inches. You can also mark 3 inches at the quarter part, and then at the mid part you can mark 2.5. So if you like the other part before this middle part, you can mark 2 3/4, so that you can have a good slope. So just connect that with your pencil and your ruler. And then at the base of the collar, you're going to go in by 1 inch, so that we can have that triangular kind of shape at the end of the collar. So go in by 1 inch, then just connect that with the ruler. After that, you cut it out. So this is our collar. So at this middle, just blend it in. So our collar is ready. And this is the collar stand. So you see how that fits in. So this is the collar stand, and this is the collar and the collar stand. So you can go ahead and cut on the fabric. For the collar, we are going to cut in 2, and the collar stand are going to be cutting 2. So one will serve as a lining for the other. So we are going to be drafting the long sleeve now. So I'm going to be using the length of this paper as the length of our sleeve. A long sleeve is usually around 24 inches, and then we have about 3 inches for the cuff, while the main sleeve will now be 21. So you can take quarter of the bust circumference to know how much paper or fabric to put on fold. So I'm using this length of paper as the length of the sleeve. So a basic long sleeve, if you measure it, is around 24 inches depending on the length. So I'm going to be using this as my full length. So I'm going to mark the cap height. The cap height is the bust circumference divided by 12 plus 1 inch. So just mark the cap height. I have a video on how to draft a shirt sleeve, so you can also watch that. And then I also have a video on formulas and calculation. You can also watch that. So after checking that I'm able to get my armhole length, the next thing is to mark a diagonal line. So this will help us to get the shape of the cap height of the shirt. So you mark the midpoint and then the quarter point. So at that quarter point, you go up by ½ inch. And then for the down part, also ½ inch, or 0.75. I'm just using my free hand to connect that together. You can also use your fresh cuff, but I'm using my free hand to connect the points together. So take your time, just use your free hand. I'm going to be highlighting again with a marker for you to see what I'm doing right now clearly. So at this point, I think it would be a good idea for you to just click on the subscribe button and subscribe to my channel. And also, don't forget to give me a thumbs up after watching this video to the end. This is Joydala Fashion Guide. So at the down parts, you take the wrist measurement, the wrist circumference. So I'm marking 5 inches because it's on fold, making 10, and then I'm gonna add seam allowance. So after that, you're just going to connect. I'm just trying to make sure that the paper at the down part is straight. So we connect our points together from the armhole length, get the armhole curved stuff to the wrist, the main line, and then the seam allowance that we added. So I'm going to be using the marker to highlight again so that we can see, it can be more visible. So this is the cap height, the cap height line, the cap height. So I'm just remarking the diagonal line. So just watch what I'm doing in case you didn't get what I was doing the initial time. I hope it is better now. So I'm just connecting it to the wrist, and then the seam allowance. So you're going to be cutting. Usually we have the back and the front, so I'm going to cut with the back, then later on we'll cut the front part out. So this is the back, this other curved part is the front. Because the front, remember when we are drafting our pattern, the front armhole and the back armhole are not the same, so it applies to the sleeve as well. So the next thing now is to draft the cuff. So I'm going to be drafting the cuff. So you just measure what you have on the wrist of the shirt. So after you have sewn, join the side of your shirt, now go ahead and measure the wrist. So whatever we have, they also mark the height. So the cuff is usually 3 inches, for some it is 2.5. So you determine what you want. So you get another pattern paper. And then we mark our 10 inches or 9 inches as the case may be. And then you mark the height as well. So remember to also add seam allowance when you are cutting on your fabric. You add 1/2 inch seam allowance all around it when you are cutting on your fabric. So this is the cuff height. So we are adding 1/2 inch seam allowance. And the cuff, the end part is curvy. So to do that, to achieve that, you go in by 1/2 inch at both ends to get that curved part of the cuff. You go in by 1/2 inch because it's not just a square. So you go ahead and cut it out. So this is our cuff. So the height is 3 inches. And then the width is 10 inches. So the height is 3 inches, the width is 10 inches. So we are going to be cutting 2 of this. And of course we need to double it because we'll use one will serve as a lining for the other. So at the end you are cutting 4 pieces. So don't forget your seam allowance at the base. So you need to put your seam allowance around it. I'm just marking the seam allowance now so that we'll remember when we are drafting on our fabric. So this is the part you're going to be adding to the wrist. So it's going to be like this. So it's going to overlap on your wrist like this. So we are through with all our patterns. So these are our patterns. We are through with all our patterns, the basic sleeve, the basic bodies, the long sleeve, the curve, long sleeve, the curves, and then the collar. The collar and the collar stand. So we are through with our pattern. This is Joy Dollar Fashion Guide. Thanks for watching to the end, and please subscribe to my channel if you are yet to subscribe, so that you keep seeing more of those videos. So let me know what you think about this pattern. And I'm going to be using this pattern to make a shirt sleeve. So watch out for that video. We'll be sewing the shirt. Thanks for watching. These are center back or fold, and it's going to be one piece. This is the front pattern, 2 pieces. This is the collar, 2 pieces. This is the collar stand. We are going to also have 2 pieces of that. So until next time when I come your way again, it's bye-bye. And don't forget to lay bare your patterns. Thanks for watching.